At airports, departure boards froze, hospital systems went dark, retail terminals stopped taking payments. Across offices and control rooms, the same blue screen appeared again and again. This was not a cyber attack. It was not a Windows update. It was a security content update from CrowdStrike, a file meant to help defend computers from new threats. Microsoft later estimated that it affected 8.5 million Windows devices, less than 1% of all Windows machines, but they were concentrated inside organizations that run critical services. The update was live for just 78 minutes. That was enough. CrowdStrike's Falcon sensor is installed on enterprise computers to watch for suspicious behavior. To do that job, parts of it operate close to the Windows kernel, the core of the operating system. That position is powerful. It lets security software see processes starting, files changing, and communication moving between programs. It also means a serious fault can reach deeper than an ordinary application crash. CrowdStrike can update threat detection rules rapidly without replacing the entire sensor. It calls this rapid response content. The content is configuration data, not new kernel code, but the privileged sensor interprets it while the system is running. Speed is the feature. On July 19th, Speed became the delivery system for failure. At 4:09 UTC, CrowdStrike distributed 2 new template instances through a file called Channel File 291. The update was intended to improve detection of malicious activity using named pipes, a normal Windows mechanism that lets programs communicate, but one attackers can abuse. Windows hosts running Falcon sensor version 7.11 or later began receiving the file automatically. Machines that were offline escaped it. Linux and Mac systems were not affected. At 5:27 UTC, CrowdStrike reverted the defective content. The exposure window had closed, but millions of computers had already downloaded the problem, crashed, and in many cases entered a loop before a corrected file could reach them. The failure came down to a mismatch that had been hiding for months. CrowdStrike's template definition said the detector could examine 21 input fields, but the integration code that supplied data to the content interpreter provided only 20 values. That mismatch survived development and testing because the 21st field had been treated as a wildcard. Earlier content never needed to inspect a real value there, so the missing input stayed invisible. Then the July 19th update changed the condition. One new template instance used a real non-wildcard match for field 21. The validator approved content based on the expectation that 21 inputs existed. The interpreter received only 20. When Windows produced the next relevant communication event, the sensor tried to read the 21st item beyond the end of the input array. That is called an out-of-bounds read. In an ordinary app, a bad memory read may kill one process. Here, it occurred inside a security sensor operating in the Windows kernel. Windows stopped the system to protect it from further corruption. The result was the blue screen of death. CrowdStrike corrected the content in the cloud quickly. The problem was that a crashed machine could not always stay running long enough to download it. For many systems, a reboot was enough. The computer came online, pulled the safe version, and recovered. Others repeatedly failed during startup. Administrators had to reach the machine through recovery tools, remove the affected channel file, and reboot again. That difference matters. Sending one bad file to millions of endpoints takes seconds. Recovering millions of individual machines depends on encryption keys, remote access, local staff, boot timing, and the architecture of every organization. Distribution was centralized. Recovery was not. 8.5 million devices represented less than 1% of the Windows population. Yet the impact looked global because Falcon was installed where interruption is expensive. Airlines grounded flights and worked through disrupted crew and booking systems. Healthcare organizations delayed procedures and appointments. Retailers, broadcasters, banks, and public safety agencies reported outages. The machines were not important because they were numerous. They were important because they sat at the junctions of real services: a check-in desk, a dispatch center, a payment lane, a hospital workstation. The same defensive product, the same rapid update channel, and the same operating system connected organizations that otherwise had nothing in common. One configuration error crossed all of those boundaries at once. The root cause was not one careless line. It was a chain of controls that all accepted the same bad assumption. The input count was not validated when the sensor was compiled. Runtime bounds checking did not stop the 21st read. Tests did not cover a non-wildcard value in that final field. The validator trusted a definition that did not match what the interpreter actually received. And once the content passed those gates, deployment was broad enough for a hidden defect to become a global event before telemetry could contain it. CrowdStrike later added input count validation, bounds checks, broader test cases, canary testing, staged rollout rings, bake-in time, and more customer control over when rapid response content is deployed. Each measure adds a break where the original chain had none. The CrowdStrike outage is often summarized as a bad update. That description is true but incomplete. The deeper failure was coupling trusted software with deep access, automatic global distribution, similar systems inside critical organizations, and recovery that became manual precisely when central control was lost. None of those choices is irrational by itself. Security tools need visibility. Threat intelligence needs speed. Standardization lowers cost. Automatic updates close dangerous gaps. But when every efficiency points in the same direction, one defect can travel farther than anyone can respond. Resilience is not only preventing the wrong file, it is limiting how many systems can receive it before evidence arrives, making failure safe when an assumption is wrong, and keeping a recovery path outside the system that just failed. The update lasted 78 minutes. The cascade began much earlier, in every missing boundary that allowed one small mismatch to become everyone's problem.